one of the great things about Walden Theater was that we were all gathered together to take seriously and do something well that was worth taking seriously and doing well. And that's an important lesson at any time of life, but I think particularly good for kids. And as enjoyable as Shakespeare is to read, there is just nothing like getting to play him. And we all loved doing that. The other important aspect of the theater, which I would say was really just as important, is the friendships that we all made there. I think that was particularly true of my class, which was the class of '80, and the class of '81, which is Charlie's class, and some of the classes around it. We were a very tight group of friends. We'd all been acting, or a lot of us had been acting for years. It really was a company, it really was an ensemble, and that made it for better theater, and it made for better friendships, and both of those things were important. This is the graveyard, the Ormsby graveyard that went here with the Ormsby estate. The cabin, which is now just a slab on the ground, was over there. The back room was the office, and this big room to the right with the fireplace was our theater there, a very intimate theater, but there was great advantages to that. When the lights came up, you could see the whole audience, and I distinctly remember acting my heart out one night and looking out and seeing my dad, who I'm sure gotten up at 5 in the morning, and he was back in his chair like this, dead out, but you know, he was there to support my theater work, asleep or awake. The meadow stage was over here. I guess, now, I don't know if those are new light poles, but there was a light pole in front of the stage where we hung some lights from, and then the stage was behind it. I feel like the stage was there where the light poles are, with the background of the shrubbery, and of course we could always hear that for several years there were peacocks around, and peacocks have the most unnerving, raucous cry for such a beautiful bird, but it's still very classy to be serenaded by peacocks as you do Shakespeare. We always liked that. The part of the spring festival here was 2 Shakespeare plays, an evening of sonnets and music, which Terry Sherman directed us in, and that was another great aspect of the theater for me, learning that Renaissance music. Terry was a fine pianist and really a good musical director, getting us to, a flutist too, that's right, I'd forgotten. Getting us to sing without making us sound the least bit stagey. That was wonderful fun. The patrons' dinner underneath this big oak tree. And a couple years there we had a Renaissance fair out in this field around that same, I guess it was a 2-week period, which I thought was just great fun, because I really we got to put on our costumes and walk around the fair like we really were living in that period, and it was a great fantasy for a teenager, I thought, and the fair was itself fun and not hugely authentic, but authentic in a lot of ways. Really fun time. In the funny stories department, we were talking about this in the car on the way up, we did The Would-Be Lady, which was my feminist version of The Would-Be Gentleman by Moliere, in the cabin one winter, and we had rather, it was a low-budget production, even by Walden standards, and we had sort of scarves as costume, and Donald, I think, was wearing a scarf around his head and was standing up against the mantelpiece, which of course was full of lighted candles, in his cigar Indian pose for part of the play, and his scarf caught on fire. And Nancy says that Gene Kimmel turned to her in Gene's very low-key way and said, "Nancy, I do believe Donald's on fire." At that moment, Jeff Webb ran up, patted, Jeff Webb was the stage manager, was running the lights, ran up, patted Donald's hair, her head, doused the flames with that, ran off the stage. I don't think anybody missed a beat. I don't think anybody missed a line. Donald remained the cigar Indian for the entire the entire process of being doused. And we went on with the show, and those of us in the back having heart attacks all recovered, and Donald, of course, was never at a loss. That was one of our funny moments. Another great theater moment I remember on the Meadow stage, Jeff Webb, who's lawyering now in Vermont, was a very talented actor and had a lot of good roles. I can't remember what this one was. It might have been Gremio in Taming of the Shrew, but he was deathly ill. He came to play, went on stage, did his scene, came off stage, threw up, went back on stage, did the next scene. Again, like Donald, never lost a beat.
Talk about the Tempest.
Tempest. Well, Tempest was my foray into the very difficult world of ingenues. Ingenues look so easy, and they're awfully hard to play. It's not easy to play innocence at any time in life, and it's not easy to play earnestness without looking extremely sappy. And I had to be in love with Barrett Cooper that whole way, and that was very hard for me. As much as I do love Barrett Cooper, but being a teenager and having to show love for a whole play was difficult, and having to kiss Barrett when Barrett would Barrett had lots of little tricks he'd like to do to try to make me burst into laughter while we had our big kiss scene, and that was a very long kiss scene as I remember the directing. But he never broke me.